to scream, and then he told me to be charming.
To be charming? Do you know how to be charming?
To be like nice?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, believers and non-believers. Hey, I'm Joe the Street Preacher, and welcome back to my channel. Today is November 16, 2020, and it's actually been 13 days since the election. And you already know what I'm about to say, that Donald Trump is still technically, legally, officially, and lawfully the President of the United States. We haven't moved forward yet. This nation is still in pause. You remember Dana Coverstone dream said that on the 3rd, that the clock was gonna go counterclockwise, meaning that we're still in Donald Trump's era. And this nation has come to that conclusion. Look at what the press secretary for Donald Trump has said on the news about this nation being on pause.
All we are saying is let's press pause, allow the courts to look at what happened, and then we can move forward united as a country.
Wow, that's exactly right. America is on pause right now. We are currently stuck in the past. Ever since November 3rd, this nation has not moved forward. Just like Donald Coverstone's dream, the clock has turned counterclockwise, and we are still in Donald Trump's era. And he is still the President of the United States, whether you like it or not. Protesters. So, in my last video, we covered that Joe Biden protesters are asleep right now. And the next thing that Dana Coverstone stated, and I quote, "And this bell rang." Now the question is, what does this bell symbolize? Because I don't believe that this bell is meant to be taken literally. It's a metaphor. It's a symbol for something. God is saying one thing like a metaphor, but he means another. You know, it's like in the world we have a saying that says, a dog is a man's best friend. So by knowing that, when somebody walks up and introduces his friend and say, "Hey boy, this is my dog right here." When they say that, we understand that what he just said is not meant to be taken literal. He was using a metaphor. He's basically saying, this guy right here, he's my best friend. We're close friends. That's basically what he's saying. So with that being said, it's the same thing like in the Bible. You know, in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus spoke parables, which we also call metaphors. And the parable that he gave one time, he spoke about the wheat and the tares. He talked about the good seed. He talked about the outcome of the tares. So with that being said, when you first heard that, when the disciples first heard that, that was a parable. They didn't understand what he was saying. So they turned around, which is real smart. They turned around and they asked him, "Master, declare unto us the parable." And he went on ahead to explain to them exactly what the wheat represents. He said the wheat represents the children of the kingdom, which are the children of God. He said the good seed represented the Son of Man, which is the Son of God, which is Jesus. He says that the tares represents the children of the wicked. Basically what I'm saying is that I'm showing you that there are parables in the Bible. There are metaphors in the Bible. You know, if you first pick up a Bible and you never read Genesis, you never read no book in the Bible, but you try to pick up the Bible and open it up to Revelations, you're nuts trying to figure out what in the world is this Bible about. It is crazy. They're talking about dragons. They're talking about a big woman in the sky. They're talking about this Jesus, when he come back, the sword is going to come out of his mouth. But see, those things are symbols. That woman represents the bride, represents the church, which is the bride of Christ, because we are the bride of Christ. Our husband is Christ. Now, when it talks about the dragon, it tells you in the Bible that the dragon, which is the devil, which is Satan, you know, it tells you that. It tells you about the sword. The sword represents the word of God. So when Jesus come back, The reason why the sword is going to come out of his mouth is because the sword represents the word of God. He is going to judge us by the word of God. So with that being said, just like we understand in the Bible, not everything is meant to be taken literally. It's the same way with our dreams. Not everything is meant to be taken literally. So the dream that Dana Coverstone had, that when the protesters was asleep, when they was wearied and tired and they was sleeping, he said, and then this bell rang. Okay, the bell, I believe, is also not to be taken seriously. The same way that we look at the saying, a dog is a man's best friend, well, that's the same way we need to look at the bell. Now, in the world of professional boxing, we all know that when the bell rings, the fight begins. The bell actually starts off the fight.
Do you have any questions? The Ruelas Garcia from last year, in which Garcia died. We'll see if he's overly cautious. And
as soon as he hit him, he got a clean right hand, a straight punch, which he normally doesn't throw a lot of.
So that's a good example of when the bell rings, the fight begins. And here's another thing that I want to point out to you about that bell. Think about this. The bell just doesn't ring in round one. The bell rings at the beginning of every round. So from round 1 all the way to round 12, that bell rings. But every time that bell rings, the fight starts. Now also think about this. In between the bells, like say 8th or 9th round, the boxer gets tired because they've been fighting 1 round, 2 round, 3 round, 4 round. They done got up to 8 rounds. They tired. Some boxing matches don't even last that long. But they get tired. They get weary. They get exhausted. They're out of breath because they've been fighting for so long, for so many rounds, that now they're taking a break. Oh, but when the bell rings again, the fight begins. Chaos begins. Trouble begins. You see where I'm going with this? We see in the world that when we see a bell in the professional world of boxing, we see that when the bell rings, the fight begins. So that's literal, right? We understand what God is showing Dana Coverstone in his dream about the bell. Is it going to be a literal bell that's going to ring in the streets that wake the protesters up? No, it's not a literal bell. It's symbolic. What does that mean? Notice how when the bell rang, we're going to get to that because Pablo's dog interpretation is going to get to that, and we're coming up to that real soon. So I'm going to share with you what I believe God revealed to me about that bell. We know that when a bell rings, it starts the fight. The audience, the boxers, and the viewers on TV all are conditioned to this. We all know. Once that bell rings, we could be in the kitchen with our back turned towards the TV, and we could be fixing us to eat while there's a break. But as soon as we hear ding, 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 we automatically turn around because we know the fight started. So we react behind this bell. What I believe the Lord revealed to me about the bell is the news media. Think about back in 1991 when CNN put the news, when it was all over the news about the Rodney King's beating. You know, they kept showing this beating and beating and beating over and over and over and over again. They showed it on CNN. They showed it on NBC, on ABC, CBS, and all these news stations. And they just kept showing the beating over and over again. When they showed that in the black communities, it triggered something. It caused people to get mad. It caused people to go into a rage. And what they started doing, they started rioting, they started looting, they started fighting, they started burning down businesses in their own neighborhoods. They started burning down buildings, snatching people out of cars and beating them. And a lot of people died. You know, I think they said about 52 people died during the riots. The streets was total chaos. Where did it start from? It started from the news media. That was the bell that triggered all this chaos to come about. Let me give you an example. Look at this.
Who had the camera? Where was the camera? Oh my God, they caught this on camera.
It was one of the most disturbing things that we'd seen on video.
The videotaped beating of Rodney King had left many Los Angeles residents outraged.
It was like the first time we had actually seen it. So it was shocking, but at the same time, it was wonderful because now we Americans, we African Americans, we had evidence as that I was worthless.
Appeals this evening for calm in Los Angeles.
And an attempt to answer the question of why the jury came up with a not guilty verdict.
Anger. The same way I'm angry, you should be angry, you should be angry, and anger turned into violence.
The trouble began Wednesday afternoon at this intersection in South Central Los Angeles. Cars attacked, the occupants beaten and robbed. At first, no police responded, and when they finally did, they left almost immediately. It would be hours before they were mobilized, and even then, much of the looting would continue with impunity.
With the police absent from the intersection of Normandy and Florence Wednesday, the crowd starts dragging whites and Mexican Americans from their vehicles and beating them. Then, the scene that came to symbolize the brutality of the riot. Reginald Denny is pulled from his truck and nearly killed. Denny appears to beg for assistance. Other blacks later help him escape. Looters begin stripping stores. The riot is starting to spread. Night begins to fall, and the intersection is burning. Another man who was beaten staggers up as a black preacher seems to pray over him.
Okay, so did you see that part when I was showing you the CNN news dealing with the video of Rodney King? Did you see that part where it says the viral video that set the city on fire? Basically what they're saying, this is the video that caused the city of LA to be set on fire when they started looting, destroying the city, burning down their businesses, burning down buildings. So it was the news of the beating of Rodney King that caused the city of LA to be set on fire. The people reacted behind the news. The news was that bell to set it off. Just like in a boxing ring, when they ring the bell up, the boxers get up and they start fighting with one another because they're trained to react behind that bell. The people in the streets are trained to react behind the bell, behind the news, which is the bell. That's what God showed me that the bell means. The bell represents the news media, the mainstream news media, because people react behind the things that are said on the news media. Just like a boxer react to the bell when they're in the ring. When the bell rings, they get up, they get ready to hurt one another. And that's what they do when they do in the riots, when they're burning down the buildings, they're hurting one another. You're burning down mom and pop business. These people have been saving their money for years. Got a business. They don't even have big insurance. They just barely getting by. And because something that the police officer does to a black race, you go and burn down these people's business. And a lot of times, it's your own skin color business that you're burning down. Okay, so with that being said, not only did that happen in 1991, but that also happened again, that bell rang again in 2020. When George Floyd died, did he die in secret? No. Somebody videotaped it. They sold it to the news. CNN broadcasted, NBC broadcasted, and all those news media broadcasted. And they showed the officer, which I don't agree was right what he did, but they showed the officers. They showed the world what the officer did. And by them doing that, the whole world, not just that city, not just that state, the whole world, it was like a domino effect. The whole world went to chaos. There was trouble in the streets. There was rioting. There was looting, burning down buildings, fighting one another, fighting the police. All these things happened. It started from the news of the news media. The news media is the bell that starts off the chaos. This is what God has revealed to me, and it makes a lot of sense. They did that with George Floyd. They did that with Rayshard Brooks. They did that with Blake's. They did that with everybody. It seems like it got to the point that every time a police and a civilian get into a confrontation, only when he's black, that they plastered on the news. You know, and I'm not really here to talk about that, really. I'm just basically showing you what the Lord revealed to me about the bell. The bell is symbolic for the news media, because the news media, every time they sound that alarm, total chaos. The only way they riot and burn down the streets is after hearing the news that they start rioting. They riot off the news. So the news is the bell. That's the bell that is sounding alarm. And the reason why the protesters are asleep right now, because guess what? Joe Biden protesters is not rioting anymore. They're not looting anymore. They only did that when they was protesting. Every time somebody protested for Joe Biden to win the election, at the end of the night, they would do that. So in their minds, Joe Biden had won the election. They've been lied to because he hasn't. But in their minds, Joe Biden has won the election. He is the president of the United States, in their minds. But notice that Dana Coverstone dream goes on to say, in the dream he said, and suddenly they come to life and they started salivating like a Pavlov dog's situation. And that's what we're going to talk about next. What does Pavlov dog's interpretation means? But until this bell rang, they was quiet. They was peaceful. They was resting. When I say resting, you know, when you're resting, you can't do no harm. You can't burn down a building when you're resting. You can't destroy someone's business when you're resting. You know, you can't fight against the police or fight the other civilians when you're resting. You know, you can't do anything when you're resting because you're resting. It's almost like the fighters. When they're fighting, when that bell rings, they go to their corners, they both sit down. Like in the 8th or 9th round, they are tired, they are exhausted, they are weary. But when that bell rings, it's when they get up and they continue to do the same thing they did in the last round. And that was to pound on each other, try to break one another's ribs, break one another's jaw, you know, or even knock somebody out, and sometimes a person die behind that. But what I say that to say this, you know, the protesters, they're sleeping right now. They're exhausted because all year they've been protesting all year. They've been fighting, burning down places all year, but now they're resting. But when that bell rings, he says that suddenly, they became alive. They right back to themselves again. And he said that they started salivating like Pavlov's dogs. You know, a dog, when a dog knows that you're about to feed him, he starts salivating. That's like saliva. And what causes a dog to drool is when he see the food. When I take the dog food to go feed my dogs, just by them seeing me bring the food, it causes them to drool. It causes them to salivate. The reason why is because that's the very thing that they want. They want that food. They want it so bad, they start dribbling at the mouth. They start drooling at the mouth. Let's look at what Dana Coverstone said. He said when these protesters, when they heard the bell, which is the news, it caused them to come alive and they started salivating at the mouth. The reason why they're drooling, because there's going to be a news that is going to broadcast. And when that news that I believe, and remember what I'm saying, I believe that news is going to be because right now they are counting and recounting the election. It is starting to show a lot of fraud in all these different states. So when that actually come about, I believe that the prophets that had dreamed that Donald Trump was going to get a second term and that Donald Trump was going to win again, I believe the prophets. I believe what Dana Stone dream is showing, that in the end of the dream, the outcome of this election, you see Kamala Harris crying. You see Joe Biden falling head first, and you see somebody with a sign that says the obvious winner is not so obvious, because to them, it's obvious that Joe Biden won. You know, I had a guy, I think his name was Daniel E. He texted me and told me, that he believed that the one that was holding the sign in Dana's Coverstone dream that said the obvious winner is not so obvious, I was thinking it was the Trump supporters, but he made sense. Daniel E. Thank you, man. I kind of agree with that, because he said that Dana Coverstone said that his head went down in shame. So I believe that's going to be the outcome of this election, that Joe Biden, because you're not going to win an election by thievery. Not when God's hand is in the midst of it. God's not going to allow that to happen. I believe God allowed this process to go along like this because God is exposing the corruption that's in the political world. That's the politicians. You know, all this stuff that they're doing is fraudulent. You know, so God is exposing that right now. The hand of God is on America. So the thing that I'm trying to show you is that when the news results of this election, when Trump wins this election, when he wins this election, 2020, when he wins this election, they're going to broadcast that on the news because the protesters are sleeping right now. Joe Biden's protesters are sleeping right now. Yeah, they had a little fight trying to pick on some of the Trump supporters. Yeah, they was picking on some of the Trump supporters, but it wasn't nothing big. They wasn't looting. They didn't burn down buildings. They didn't riot or nothing like that. They just tried to pick on some of the Trump supporters. That wasn't really nothing big. But the thing is, they're asleep right now. Basically, they're asleep. But when they hear the news that Trump now has won the election, that he is now again the president of the United States of America, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has lost. And when the truth is exposed that they try to steal this election, guess who's going to get mad? Off of this news, off of this particular bell that rings, guess who's going to wake up? Guess who's going to start salivating at the mouth? You know what that means? They're going to start salivating at the mouth because you know what? Just like my dog, when I bring the food, the very thing that he wants, he start drooling now because he know he get a chance to eat this food again like he did earlier. And that's the same thing with these people. You know the Bible tells us in Proverbs, I'm going to put it right there, look at that. It tells us in Proverbs, it said it's a sport to a fool to do mischief. The word sport is like, it's like sports. It's like fun. It's fun for a fool to do mischief. It's almost like, when you think about it, sports is fun. When you got a kid that know he's going to play football tomorrow and everybody's going to be there. So he goes to bed at night. He can't wait till he get up in the morning. When he get up, he can't wait to go put on his clothes and get ready to go play this game because it's fun. He's looking forward to doing this. This is something he like to do. And that's how it is for these guys that, when they was out there protesting, you had people that's really protesting, the protesting about, the injustice in the criminal system and stuff like that with the officers and stuff like that. They got the right to do that. That's their amendment, to protest against the government, to protest against the police. They have that right to do that. But what they don't have the right to do is riot, to loot, and to burn down buildings, and to fight people and shoot people and stuff like that. They don't have the right to do that. But that particular crowd that comes out to do it, they're not really there to protest. They're really there to have fun because their fun is to be able to run inside the buildings, burn the buildings down, steal the clothes, steal the shoes, steal cars, bust windows, break windows and stuff like that, vandalize the place. They love to do that. That's a sport to them. That's fun to them. The news caused them to drool at the mouth to be able to now go and do the very things that they love to do. Because the news, the sound of the bell, they feel in their mind gives them this right to do that. When the news shows that Donald Trump has officially won now, that is going to cause the Joe Biden's protesters to get angry, to come alive, and to go and do the very thing that they love to do, riot and tear up the city. And in Dana Coverstone's dream, it showed that the place was tore down so bad that the government had to say that this would take time to rebuild and to build trust again. Notice how I said that in that dream. Look at that dream. I'm going to play that right after this video.
There were protesters in the streets who were weary and asleep, and they appeared dirty and dingy like they had not slept or showered in weeks. And this bell rang, and suddenly these people come to life. They woke up and they started salivating like a dog, like Pavlov's dog situation, big buckets of saliva, and it seemed to stain their shirts. And I saw people screaming and getting violent over the election results, to the point that people were firing weapons just randomly into the air, into the sky. People were angry and people were mad. I saw a person with a sign and it said, "The obvious winner is not so obvious," like a placard, like, you know, the world's about to end, God is coming, you know, get ready to, you know, whatever, one of those signs. But it said, "The obvious winner is not so obvious." And he held his head in shame. But the crowd was in a frenzy of hatred. They were even hitting each other with, you know, with their signs and their banners and their wrath. And I saw more cities with pillars of smoke over them, like the wild firestorms in California right now. I saw crumbled and burned out buildings in Washington, D.C. Not monuments, but businesses and commercial real estate. Headlines declared that rebuilding would take time and trust would take even longer, and government could not do it in a timely fashion.
He said it would take time and trust. Why is this nation going to be in a situation where it's going to take time for us to trust again? Trust who? I tell you who. The politicians, because they cheated. It's going to expose that they cheated. We would never, ever feel comfortable again voting again in 4 more years. I don't believe that America will be around in 4 more years, but that's another story. But if it was, we wouldn't want to go vote anymore, because we wouldn't. After God exposed this election, it's going to cause millions of people to not want to vote, because they're going to say, "I'm standing in line. I'm taking a day off. I'm going over here to stand in line for all this time, and then I'm going to vote for this person, but the machine is going to flip it to the other person." It's going to cause my vote. It's going to cause the other person who I don't want to be president to be president. That's the message that it's going to give America. So it's going to cause America not to want to trust the government anymore. You know, this dream is very serious. It really is. There's a lot of details God has given in this dream. So, you know, with that being said, God showed us in this dream, this one dream in November, Dana's Coverstone dream. God showed us that that Trump's victory was going to be challenged. We see that's true. We see that the finger pointed to November 3rd. We saw what happened on November 3rd. We saw that the clock went counterclockwise, meaning in the opposite direction, showing that, you know, this nation hasn't moved forward yet. It's still going back. We're still in Donald Trump's era. We seen that come true. We see that the protesters are asleep, and it's like they've been asleep for weeks. And it's been a little while since the election, you know, and they're at ease. They ain't rioting, they ain't tearing up, they ain't burning up, nothing. Look on the news. You don't see none of that going on right now because they sleep. So we see that part of the dream is true. I don't know why people say Dana Coverstone's dreams ain't true. We're also going to learn in this dream that there is a pause, and that the news are going to show that Donald Trump has won, and these protesters that are sleeping are going to wake up again, and they're going to tear up the city even worse. You think you saw the city burning down from George Floyd until the election. You know, they've been doing that for so long, they tired right now. That's why they're sleeping. And they feel that Joe Biden has won. But when they get the news that Joe Biden didn't win, they're going to be so angry, so frustrated, so mad when they hear this next bell. It's going to cause them to burn the city all the cities in the United States down, to the point where it's going to take a long time to rebuild, and trust is going to take a long time for them to gain trust again in the government. I don't want to make this video too long, but basically I just wanted to show you that part on the dream. Anyway, hey man, I love y'all, man, for sitting down and listening to me, man. I thank for all the ones that's been communicating with me, be sending me texts and encouraging me and stuff like that. God bless you. I just ask that if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I don't care about the likes, because I'm not doing it to get liked. I don't care if you like it or you don't like it. I just want you to view it because I want you to hear it, because I want you to hear what God is saying to the nation today, to America today. So I'm just asking that you subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to continue to to upload things about God and dealing with this election and dealing with the things that God has said. I don't think there's a lot of people out there supporting Dana Coverstone. And Dana Coverstone, if you ever see this video, brother, I love you. I thank you for being bold and standing for the word of God. Brother, you say you ain't a prophet. That's cool, you know, because you're being humble. That just showed me you have the spirit of humbleness. You know, you have the spirit of meekness. But brother, I want to tell you something. You are a prophet. You are a prophet. A prophet is somebody who received revelation from God, who's able to foretell the future. And that's what you're doing. The things God is revealing to you, you're revealing to this nation. And it's for a reason. God is using you to warn the nation. You are a prophet. If you don't want to call yourself a prophet, that's okay, brother. But I acknowledge you. Me and my household, we acknowledge you as a prophet. So I just want to encourage you to keep telling your dreams. It doesn't matter the negative stuff that people say, because even you said in your dream that you had dreams that wolves were saying, shut up. I don't want to hear that. That's not in the Bible. And that's exactly what these false prophets are saying today, who don't know the word. You know, they want to hear good messages about, oh, God's going to bless this nation. God is going to do this. God is going to open up the window of heaven and bless this nation further than he ever did before. See, we'll all believe that. We'll all sing and rejoice to that. But we don't want to hear that the judgment of God is coming. The Bible tells us that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness. And America is full of ungodliness. So it's only right for the wrath of God to come down on America. All right. God bless y'all. I love y'all. Until I upload another video, please stay tuned. God bless you.